Welcome to the second Academic Representative Forum. Meet your candidates this evening. My name is Ingrid Sturgis, and I'm Assistant Chair at the Kathy Hughes School of Communications in Washington, D.C., Howard University. And we have with us Corey Atkinson. Corey, you want to say a little bit about yourself? He's going to be the timekeeper. And just a couple of announcements. July 6th, you must have your membership in place to be able to vote. July 13th through August 7th, we'll have electronic voting, and the winners will be announced on the evening of August 7th. So we have slightly different rules tonight for this session, giving everyone a little bit longer to speak. So the rules are, there will be a 3-minute opening statement, 2 minutes each for responses, 1 minute rebuttal if requested, a 3-minute closing statement. Please stick to the qualifications, keep it civil. The audience will have an opportunity to ask questions by submitting them via Zoom chat. And candidates are to watch the NABJ parliamentarian Corey Atkinson for the 10-second warning. He will warn you, and then you will be cut off if you go too far over. And so I'm going to introduce our candidates this evening. First, we have Milbert Brown, who teaches communication theory, photography, and multimedia reporting at Washington Adventist University. Brown also is the current NABJ academic representative. The Indiana native has a doctorate in higher education leadership from Morgan State University and a master's degree from Ohio University. His BA is from Ball State. Welcome, Dr. Brown. And we also have Jarrad Henderson, who's an adjunct professor at Georgetown, senior producer at USA Today, their investigative team. He's a former NABJ baby who is the chair of the NABJ's Visual Task Force. Henderson has an undergraduate degree from Arizona State University and a master's degree from the University of Missouri-Columbia. Welcome, Professor Henderson. And we have Russell Motley, broadcast journalism professor at Florida Memorial University in HBCU in Miami Gardens, Florida, where he has lectured full-time since 2011. He oversees the broadcast journalism program. He has undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Maryland. Welcome, Professor Motley.
Thank you.
So we're going to get started with a 3-minute opening statement for each of the candidates. We're going to start with Dr. Brown. So Dr. Brown, you have your 3 minutes. Dr. Brown. Okay.
Hello, how's everybody? This position, the academic representative, it's a leadership position. It takes courage to be a leader. Leadership is the art of conceptualizing a vision and translating that vision to a way that inspires others. Leadership is the act of being brave when others have discounted you and your vision. Today, one of the most raunchy rapping artists called Carla B, that's B for brave, she dropped the importance of courage. As we heard her lyric genius, and in her words in which she affirmed, knock down and get up 9. What that means basically is that you can be knocked down, but as a leader, you still rise up in 10 and still do other things that is important in terms of your leadership development. Leadership requires you to know when to say yes and when to say no. You must say no if you're trying to relegate the limited role of NABJ representative on the board. I said no to presenting the academic rep as another student representative post. I said yes to the potential of this office to lead NABJ into an educational hierarchy. I say yes to the potential of this office to lead and to keep my promise as my first term as an academic representative. I've done some amazing things in my first term. One, I lobbied for the academic rep to hold on to the seat after a heated constitutional amendment last year. Yes, I've been very concerned in terms of getting educators to work on NABJ in NABJ sessions. I've also created an environment on the NABJ educational Facebook page where educators can understand the programming and also what's happening in research in NABJ. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to this session.
And next we'll have an opening statement from Professor Henderson.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I hope everybody is safe. Everybody is able to be as comfortable as you can. I know the quarantine is still dealing with a lot of us. And so I just want to make sure everybody's safe and just say thank you and good evening. I have been listening to a lot of you. I've been talking to a lot of you. Our academic members are some of the most resourceful, passionate members of NABJ. And you've given me a lot to think about. So thank you for taking my calls, for allowing me to ask you questions about what you think this position should be. The thing I want to address up the front is that I know a lot of people might not recognize me as an academic member. Even though I've been at Georgetown for a couple of years, done some teaching at Howard in different places, different conferences, even at NABJ, I am not that tenured full-time faculty that a lot of you are. But what I do represent are those new members, those adjunct faculty who are still professional members in our field, who might come to NABJ and ask, where do I fit in here? And so I'm glad to have this opportunity to run for this position because I want to make sure that we have a place for us as academic members within the board. And also within our institutional national convention that we have every year. There are a lot of great ideas that I've been discussing with our members. I will hopefully talk about a lot of those tonight, but I'm also just open to the opportunity for even greater ideas. And so as we move forward, the way that I can do that is that I've showed improve. As the chair for the visual task force of NABJ, I've done things that are recognizable by the organization. You can see my track record in fundraising where I've raised at least $20,000 personally for the national organization through our efforts at NABJ, not to mention the money that we raise every year for our scholarship jam. And so, I'm sorry, our photo auction that we do every year. And so when it comes to putting on programming, not only have I helped our organization and our task force be recognized nationally during our conventions, but also we host this entirely separate suite of programming in our suite during the national convention, as well as do quarterly open programming through our Facebook page and through to our members. And so I think I have the track record of putting on for our task force and making sure that we're recognized and also have opportunities within NABJ. I like to do the same thing in this role as academic representative. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Professor Henderson. And now we'll hear from Professor Motley.
Good evening. First, I want to thank everyone for taking their time to hear us tonight. Your presence is a testament to the interest and importance of the academic representative position. Need to make a quick correction. I received my undergraduate degree at the University of Miami in Coral Gables, and I received my master's at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. Now, right now, I'm proud to be coming to you tonight from my communication lab here at Florida Memorial University in Miami Gardens, South Florida's only HBCU. Now, this is just one of the spaces where my broadcast students make their magic. As you can see behind me, I got some brand new equipment that will await them when they come back next semester, including a teleprompter, and we got some brand new cameras. This is also where the members of NABJ FMU meet. I'm their advisor. They've already had their elections for the upcoming school year, and they're ready to roll up their sleeves and get to work. That's where I am, ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. I have been a leader with NABJ on the local level for the last 20 years. I'm the founding president of NABJ Tulsa in Oklahoma. I'm also the founding president of the chapter in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, currently, I'm the president of NABJ South Florida, which is still reeling from last year's national convention here in Miami. Now, after preparing and planning for the national conference for over a year, I now want to work for NABJ on a national level. Our members in general need great leadership more than ever now. The industry is quickly evolving. The number of jobs is shrinking, and the rights of Black journalists, as we've most recently seen, is being challenged. So here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to do as your next academic representative. I want to increase the number of NABJ academic members. We must have a strong, loud voice in this organization. Secondly, you need a voice on the board that will make academic membership worthwhile. Academics need jobs and career training just like everybody else in NABJ. And lastly, I want to make sure academic members are valued. We're the ones on the front line preparing all the NABJ babies for successful careers in journalism. And with that said, I hope to earn your vote tonight.
Well, thank you very much for those opening statements. And I'm going to start with a question. And I want to let all of the attendees know that you can ask a question either through Q&A or through the chat window. If you use the Q&A, you don't have to be identified. If you use the chat window, we'll tell everyone who's asking the question. Okay, so we're going to start with this question. What are your ideas for helping academic members worried about keeping students engaged in the event that their schools are not fully open in the fall? And we'll start with Professor Motley.
Okay, great question. That's something I've been thinking about since the coronavirus hit us back in March. I think this is an ideal time to have a teachable moment for not only for our students, but for the professors as well. I'm thinking about next semester. What will I do if I can't meet face-to-face with my students? Well, guess what? They're gonna have to battle it out just like the professionals do. And so, for example, here in Miami, a lot of the professional reporters, they actually tell stories with their cell phone. They actually shoot and edit the packages on their cell phone, and it's aired on TV. So if I can't meet with my students, that's more than likely what I'm going to have to do. And again, it's nothing that the professionals are not doing. So I think that as academics, we have to be more creative. We have to engage our students, and that's going to prepare them for the workplace. And I think that'll help make them even more marketable once they reach graduation.
Thank you very much. And now the same question with Professor Henderson. What are your ideas for helping academic members worried about keeping students engaged in the event that their schools are not fully open in the fall?
So that is a fantastic question. The Chronicle of Higher Education right now is reporting that 63% of universities will be back in person in the fall. That is a very high number. 17% of those, in addition to the 63%, are going to be doing some type of hybrid model, whether it's freshmen coming on campus and everybody else staying at home, or a combination between in-person and digital online training. I think the biggest need that we have, and Professor Motley spoke to this earlier in our first debate, is our access to equipment and technology, and also allowing our students to be able to produce the work that they have right there with the resources they have at home. Everybody doesn't have a computer. Everybody doesn't have software to produce audio packages, podcast packages, video packages, but what we do all have are these cell phones. So I think you're right on message with that, Professor Motley, is the use of our cell phones and creating content, but then also our journalistic integrity and ethics never change, right? So this is the perfect time when the spotlight is on Black journalists to talk a lot about what we are doing in the academic world to help our students understand what their ethical rights are, what they should and shouldn't be doing out in the field, and having these, the academia is the perfect place to have these larger conversations about what our industry should or should not be doing. The other thing we have to do is support our members who are doing that hybrid work at home, making sure that they have the resources that they need to engage students when they're, this is where I hold my Georgetown class, right here in my living room. How do you do that successfully with students and keep them engaged all semester? You got to find creative ways to get them out in the field, but safely, whether it's reporting in their home, their neighbor, somebody across the street at a safe distance, but they need materials and resources to do that.
And now, thank you, Jarrad. Now, Dr. Brown, what are your ideas for helping academic members learn about keeping students engaged in the event that the schools do not fully open in the fall?
The best learning is really done outside of the comforts of the classroom walls. Practical experience in the field makes students become real world reporters. The classroom is really for theory. It teaches theory. And yes, you're in the class, and yes, you have a connection with them, eye contact. But if you really want to be a real reporter, you have to work in the field. You don't need a lot of equipment. That's an excuse. This thing that we call mobile media has been happening for now over 10 years. We are basically in the area of covering things and doing real reporting, and what's happening in the world is basically because of a simple smartphone, which is a computer. We must encourage our students to always be aware of current events in the world around them. Educators must train students to understand society and the changing trends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those answers. I think I wanted to ask this question because a lot of the students are out there already covering some of the protests and some of the actions that's going on in the streets around the country. How do you plan to advise your students about how to cover these things and keep safe? We'll start with Professor Henderson.
Thank you, Ingrid, for that question, because it's something that everybody is talking about right now, especially in the visual journalism realm. We're having these conversations about, do you blur faces of protesters? Do you not? How do you go into a situation and report on it with journalistic integrity and then also accuracy? Because there are so many things going on. As somebody who is on the front lines of our news organization's visual team, I was out there that Saturday night, everything broke out in front of the White House. I was tear gassed and had that experience. And it's not a very pleasant experience. But the thing that I got from that is that now I can arm the next generation of journalists with how-tos, not only from me, but from organizations like the NPPA, National Press Photographer Association, and also the Authority Collective, who talks about issues of race and ethical journalism, as well as our NPPA Code of Ethics. I have a document and several resources I can send to them to say, hey, this is how you get prepared for something like this. The biggest thing that I try to stress to my students, and also that I think all of our academic members are stressing, is that your journalistic integrity is the first thing that you have to pay attention to. And your race and your ethnicity has a benefit in a situations like this, where we can offer a unique perspective in a ways that some of our other colleagues cannot. And so in this time, we have to prepare our students to make sure that they understand that they are prepared to take on the challenges of documenting this event. A year from now, people will ask you and look at your portfolio and ask you the question, what were you doing during this time? We need to present an opportunity for our students to do that and do it safely.
Thank you very much. Professor Brown, how are you going to advise your students who already are covering some of these events that are happening in the streets?
Some of the things are changing. The industry is certainly changing. I think teachers must engage students in ways of how to prepare before you hit the street. And that happens in the classroom. And that doesn't happen just before you go out. That should be something that starts from the very introduction level of journalism. You know, this is something that you mention over and over again and repeat. You talk about applying these certain concepts of reporting. You talk about how do you evaluate situations around you. And also, you have to analyze situations by just listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Russell, how about you? How are you preparing your students who are going to be on the front lines of reporting on some of these events and make sure that they're safe or they don't get hurt?
Well, you know, I'm really excited about next semester because, as Professor Brown said, you know, this is not where they actually learn. I mean, they come back here and they may edit their videos and that type of thing, but the real learning happens outside of the classroom. And so that's where I plan to put them. One thing that I want to hammer to them is this is how you can become an advocate. This is how you can become an advocate and speak for those who do not have a voice. And that's one of the things that I learned early on as a journalist. And that's what made me just go hard to be a journalist, because I'm speaking up for people who can't speak for themselves. And so that's one of the things that I want my students to do. I want them to write and tell stories from the people that are protesting in Overtown or protesting in North Miami. And so that's one of the assignments. And I was talking to my students last week, and I keep in contact with them over the summer and telling them how I'm being an advocate. And again, I practice what I preach, and I want my students involved with what I do. So I'm editor-in-chief of Legacy Magazine, which is an insert inside the Miami Herald and the Sun Sentinel. And this edition, our political issue, came out yesterday in the newspaper. And look what I got on the cover. I am a man. And so I wanted my students to realize the significance of me putting this piece of artwork on the cover. Just powerful. And it says 1,000,000 words. So I wasn't out there protesting, as I was telling my students. I wasn't out there protesting as they were in Miami. I was back home editing, you know, preparing this issue. And so that's what I want them to get, that's what I want them to understand. They don't have to necessarily be out there, you know, with the signs. They can be out here with their pens. This is another issue that I showed them. Well, this is the second issue we have. And this is a piece from an Atlanta artist by the name of Leroy Campbell. And this is called Voting Together. Again, advocacy. So that's one of the things that I want my students to understand and appreciate and grasp. And I think once I get them to understand that, that will just bring that much more value to who they are as journalists.
Thank you very much. What is the biggest issue facing academic members at this moment, and how do you propose to address it? Professor Brown, we'll start with you for that one. What is the biggest issue facing academic members, and how do you propose to address it?
The biggest issue facing academic members, the major problem is constitutional amendments in reference to the academic members. There's really, and I've been listening to the this lecture tonight, and I think we're getting really off track about the lack of established duties of this position. This is not a student rep position. This is not for a position that talks essentially about training students in the classroom. It's about empowering the academic members who are the educators to do research, and also to be involved in having a camaraderie together. You know, there needs to be a real voting power. We basically have an invisible deep state of really eliminating this post again. There's been a lack of understanding about what the description of this position is really all about. Here's examples. Professional members are not academic members. Either you're a professional member described in the Constitution, Chapter 4, Section 3, or you should not be running for an academic post. If you are a professional member that your money is coming from primarily from your academic job, that is a problem. That is a constitutional problem that must be amended. We also have another constitutional problem, the adjustment of the Constitution through proposed amendments. There should never be a problem with academics, members, they're excluded from voting on amendments that directly affect the viability as them as members. I know because we almost lost the seat.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Professor Henderson, what is the biggest issue facing academic members at this moment, and how do you propose to address it?
Well, Professor Sturgis, I agree with Dr. Brown that we need to address the voting power within our organization so that our academic members have a more viable voice in our organization. But the thing I think is the biggest challenge, and I've been talking to a lot of you over the course of when we had this last debate and then this debate, is that we have to find a way to get AEJMC and our conference in alignment with each other to try to figure out how members can benefit from both those organizations. And right now, a lot of members have quite frankly told me that they don't feel like NABJ is showing improving or showing that they care about the future and careers of our academic members. I would love to change that. I think the flexibility in this position and the way it is described should definitely be changed. But I also think it allows for somebody with the vision to come in and help amplify the members' needs in a way that hasn't been done yet. So I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to help us get our two organizations aligned. We also have opportunities to partner with other academic organizations such as South by Southwest EDU. It's a great opportunity for have our thought leaders be able to go and present research and then also hear from our leading minds in academia. I was actually a presenter there 2 years ago in 2018, and it was a fantastic experience. They have hundreds of panels and workshops for educators, and I feel like we should have a relationship with an organization like that that is huge and puts value and speaks truth to power in how they do academic education, academic challenges and issues and how they address those.
I'd like to rebuttal.
Yes.
Yeah, or a comment, basically not a rebuttal. The organization that he spoke of, AMEGC, is a great organization, and it's basically geared towards educators. Now, they have a quarterly and publication. They have peer review articles. We do not have a peer review segment in the NABJ structure. I advocated for us to basically have, at least in our magazine, have one educator to write a peer review article that really shows research. And really, to get the best person for this position would be a person that is an academic person, a researcher, a research scholar.
Professor, thank you, Professor. Professor Henderson, do you want to?
Do I get a chance to rebuttal?
Yes.
Rebuttal, or do I not?
No, go ahead. You can respond.
Sure. I'm an academic member. I have been since 2018. I have actually paid my registration as an academic member up until 2026. And so I am a member that is here for academic members. I'm also here to represent our students as well. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I do think that the person that should be in this position should be somebody that can show and prove and have tangible evidence of the things that they want to happen. And then if they have accomplished those things in the last 2 years, or if they haven't accomplished those things in the first 2 years. I'm that member, I am that representative who will make sure that at the end of a tenure, I have tangible bullet points and the organization and our members hold me accountable. So I just wanted to address that. And yes, I am an academic member.
Thank you very much. Professor Motley, the question is, what is the biggest issue facing academic members at this moment, and how do you plan to address it?
Yeah, we need an academic representative that is going to get in office and connect these dots, okay? I'm an NABJ member, and NABJ has greatly impacted me as an educator, all right? It has been my go-to organization. And my students, and you can't say academic without mentioning students. That's why we're here, okay? That's why we're here. And my students can attest to it. My students tell me if it wasn't for NABJ, they don't know where they would be. They don't know where they would get this information from, all right? If it wasn't for their professor who connected them with NABJ. So yes, we have to empower our academic members. We have to give them the resources. We gotta meet, we gotta talk. But I think more so, yes, we got to pull the members from other organizations, and we got to realize the value that NABJ has for the academic members. And I don't think that has been happening in the last few years. Okay, I've attended every conference. I attend all of the sessions and the workshops. You know why? Because I utilize it. I need to know as an academic what the industry is talking about so I can relay it. I can teach it to my students. I got to prepare them. So I can't understand why any academic wouldn't think that NABJ is invaluable because there's so many resources, so many tools. But I think we have to do a better job of recruiting these academic members and showing them the value that they're going to get. And yes, we need a newsletter. And yes, if I'm elected academic representative, we're going to have quarterly Zoom meetings, all right? So we can discuss the issues, so we can vent. Let me know what's on your mind. What can we do to make your job better? And so I'm always asking my students, what can I do to make my job better for you? What do you need, okay? And so we need to ask our academic members that, and we need to act accordingly.
Comment, rebuttal. Yes, this is not, I didn't mention anything about establishing a newsletter. We have a newsletter, it's called a Roundup for NABJ. I'm talking about the national magazine, in which we need to have somebody in the academic membership to write peer review articles. Peer review articles are different from just putting together, throwing some stuff together. It's extensive research. We need to have our academic, if you want to compete with these other organizations or do the things with the other educational organizations, there needs to be strong research, peer review research presented.
Thank you so much, Professor Brown, Dr. Brown. Here's a question from someone who's entered one. How will you specifically help members make the transition from the newsroom to the classroom effectively? And we'll start with Professor Motley. You can answer that question first. How will you specifically help members make the transition from the newsroom to the classroom?
Okay. I made a successful transition from the newsroom to the classroom only because I have a love for aspiring journalists. I've always been a mentor as a professional journalist, always. And I think it's a personality thing. Not everybody may be cut out to be an academic. You have to have a love and a passion for teaching. And I think the person who has that personality, who is patient and who is loving, and I love all my students, and who wants to share your craft, I think they would make the ideal candidate for a professor. And when I came here to Florida Memorial University and was interviewed, that's one of the things that they probed. They wanted to know how I interact with the students and what is my success with the students. And that's one of the things that got me the job. So I think that's a conversation that we have to have with professionals who want to transition to this profession, because it's not easy. It's just like being on TV. It's not as easy as it looks. All right, I have to meet with my students every day, and you know, they have issues that they bring to the table that you have to deal with. Nobody told me that I was going to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist as a communication professor, but that's just what I am. All right, we're having to solve their problems, and so that's what we do. We solve problems and we educate, and I think it takes a certain personality to be able to do that.
Professor Brown, Dr. Brown, excuse me. How do you plan to help professionals make the transition to the classroom? Well,
I think you make the transition from the classroom by being one.
I'm sorry, let me just rephrase that. Make the transition from the newsroom to the classroom.
Okay, well, you make the transition from the newsroom to the classroom. When I started teaching college journalism, I was already a professional at the Chicago Tribune, and I would work in the evenings at the Medill School of Journalism. And you know, it's a process, and through that process, you learn about people, you learn how to present, you learn what type of goals you would like to present. But you have to have a certain, really a personality. My first job out of college was I was a certified high school journalism teacher. So I already had that, academic, teaching camaraderie with student background. But but I didn't want to remain academic from the beginning of my career. But I think if you want to be a better educator, I think you should keep in mind that you are a journalist, and those skills are transferable. But also be willing to go back to school if you have to. I went back to school to get, a doctoral degree. I mean, who would do that? Who in their right mind? But I wanted to be a better educator, a researcher. So that's why I went back.
And Professor Henderson, the question for you is, how do you help professional members make the transition from the newsroom to the classroom?
Dr. Brown, were you finished? You sound like you was about to say something.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay. So I think there's a few ways that we should be doing this. The first of which is we have media institutes that NABJ does all the time. We need to figure out a way to actually host a course for people who are transitioning from their professional lives into their academic lives. As an adjunct, when I came on and I did my onboarding process, my orientation process, they basically focus on your CMS, your content management. Here's how to use Canvas. Here's how to use Blackboard. But they really don't prepare you for getting in front of these 10, 15, 20 students and create some content for your class. Thankfully, because of my experience with NABJ, that's really what got me the opportunity at Georgetown to be able to teach a full-time class to these students. And there's no reason why. That's one of the things I wish NABJ did a little bit more better. And so I would love to start a type of media institute. And even if it's a weekend thing or a quarterly thing, I think it would help our members so much better, because you have the professional track who are adjuncts, and then you have the tenure track. And we have so many academic members with that knowledge of research and publishing and where the resources are. And then we have the folks like me who come in who are still professionals, but teach. I think you're talking about two separate categories of individual, but they both should be able to come to a place within NABJ and have their questions answered. And we should have an organization that presents materials like an open culture or a Khan Academy, and we should be sharing our resources amongst each other. Right now, that opportunity doesn't exist within NABJ. I'd like to be the person to help it come into fruition.
Thank you very
Can I
much.
add something? Can I add something?
Yes, please, Professor.
And again, this is where the academic representatives should be stepping up at our conventions. We need to, have sessions that will educate professionals as to how to make this transition. What has been like? What is the pros and the cons? What's the ups and the downs? And I think at that time, we need to tell the professionals that this isn't the end of your professional journalism career. As I said, I'm editor-in-chief of 3 magazines here in Miami. And I do that for a reason. I want to make sure that my students know that I'm just not a book smart professor. I'm actually practicing what I'm teaching them. They can actually see it. And so, that's the value in having academic, members like myself, and we can have that conversation with the professionals that, you're a journalist for life. And I'm a living testament to that. And I'm going to forever be a journalist. Not sure I'll forever be a professor, because, life changes and you have different goals. But for right now, this is what I love to do. And I'm willing to, have that conversation with the professionals.
Thank you very much. I have this question. In academia, they're facing a lot of the same issues that Black journalists are facing in their newsrooms around the issue of diversity and fairness. How do you plan to support the academic members in this moment when they're facing the same kinds of things that Black journalists are facing in the newsroom? I'll start with Professor Motley.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Can you repeat it one more time?
We in academia are facing some of the same issues that Black journalists are facing in the newsroom around representation, diversity, opportunities. how do you, in your capacity as an academic representative for NABJ, help the members who are in the classroom kind of surmount some of the same issues?
Well, as far as jobs goes, I think that we need an academic representative that is going to be on the lookout for positions in higher education. There's a position open right now, I'm told, at the University of Florida for dean, all right? That needs to be one of us in that position, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference who's in that position because we bring certain things to the table. Here at Florida Memorial, my dean doesn't look like me. He's white, all right? That doesn't take away the fact that he can do his job, but again, here at an HBCU, and the dean is white, we're missing something. We're missing something, all right? So I think that in my position, if I'm elected academic representative, that's one of the things I want to bring to the table and make our members aware of these positions. And not only that, prepare them for these positions. I mean, you gotta be, trained, you gotta have the education. And I think that we need to be that pipeline that prepares them for that so that we are in powerful positions at School of Communications.
Professor Henderson, how about you answering that question? So we're facing the same things in academia in a lot of places that Black journalists are facing in the newsroom. How do we help the academic members in this moment where we are worrying about issues of diversity, representation, and access?
There's an undeniable correlation between those two communities. And I think you attack it the same way you attack diversity, representation, and all of that in the newsroom by looking at identifying talent, recruiting that talent, and retaining that talent. We don't have anything right now in our current structure that allows us to do any of those things. And so who are the other people who are full-time professionals or part-time professionals, or who were recently furloughed or laid off, who are looking at this as a possible option to continue their career in journalism? We need to be able to have a structure where we're able to recruit those members and retain them by showing them the value of our organization and the value of this position as an academic rep. I've done it with the Visual Task Force, where we've recruited people based off of our national convention, based off of contests that go on every year. So we can identify those talented students to bring them in the fold and to let them know, hey, we have resources. We have a scholarship we give away every year with the Visual Task Force as part of the National Scholarship Initiative. And the thing is, we have to find those people and as Professor Motley said, let them know there's a pipeline, there's a structure, there's a process to onboard them, to receive them, and to make sure that they stay within the academic rep. So who are the people that can, in academic positions? So who are the people that can school them on first year positions? Who are the people that can school them on how to go from non-tenure to tenure? Who are the people that can help them find the resources that they need to be the type of academic professional they want to be? Because everybody doesn't want to be a tenure track. And so some people just want to, do their thing on the side and educate students on the side, or write a book, or do a class on Udemy. We have to find all those people who are in that realm and attract them to NABJ.
Professor Brown, Dr. Brown, how would you answer the question? We're facing the same issues in the academic arena that we're facing in the newsrooms. How do you plan to help the members surmount issues of diversity, representation, and access to the academy?
At the white PWIs or the Ivy League schools, there's very few of us in tenure track positions. Certainly, if you're talking about getting a deanship at the University of Florida, one thing that you need right off the top, a PhD. That's the first thing. These things are already known and should be known by anybody that's in academia or that's thinking about doing academic work. This is not a group of college students. These are professional men and women that really know what to do. I don't think we should be a database, and I don't mind putting information about what's open, and we do that on the NABJ Educators Facebook page. We put all information that I know of, or I get on that particular, in that particular area. That's where everything goes. Maybe we should have another a place to put it, but in the NABJ system, there's a career area, and it says academic, and those jobs are posted, academic jobs are posted there. Sure, we have to be, talk more, but really it comes down to networking. We have to network as journalists, as academic members and professionals. It comes down to networking. That's what it comes down to.
May I add something?
Yes, please, Professor.
The only thing I want to add is that I'm not talking about being passive. We need to be proactive, all right? Just like the professional members, they go to the major networks and have conversations with them about diversity. We need to be going to the institutions and talking to the presidents of the institutions about diversity. So we need to be more proactive and less passive, which I think is what we've been in the past few years.
I don't, could I say comment? I don't know if that's
Excuse me, we're gonna let Professor Henderson respond to that one as well.
I'm sorry, I yield to Dr. Brown because I want him to respond to exactly what was said. I have something on a different.
I'm just saying, I don't know if the academic position is that those are the duties of what you will be doing. That also becomes really kind of the duties that happens throughout the board, in which we highlight situations where Black journalists have been done wrong in terms of coverage and that kind of stuff. You know, we can't just go to University of Florida and say, we demand that you should hire a Black associate professor. That's just not how it works. I've been working with Columbia University, in which we identified a group in which we complained about something that was in a newspaper. And I sent all the information over, and it's only about 4 or 5 academic NABJ members that responded. So there's only so much that we can do, or one can do.
Professor Henderson, please.
Yes, ma'am. So I understand the idea that if you want to be a dean of a communication school, you need to have a PhD. That I am running to be an academic representative for our institution. And at the end of the day, we have to be a lot more proactive, to Professor Motley's point, than posting links on a Facebook page. We should be organizing that involvement in that training and those programmings, and not just pass off to other people who are doing it, but we should also be the leaders who are able to host these types of conversations. And that's what I'm trying to do as academic representative, to go beyond the very ominous description of an academic rep and start putting things in practice that we could be doing, that we should have been doing for the last few years.
Okay, I have this one question, and we're going to have to make it quick because we're coming almost to the end of our session, and I want to give you time to have that final wrap up. So this question says, NABJ is not an academic organization, as we know, but how can we support our members who are both or who were academics and journalists? We'll take that question from, we'll start with Dr. Brown with that question.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about, who hasn't done what is not programming, is not being presented. I've encouraged academic members to really view the NABJ workshop session. There's 2 particular sessions, and one in which I made a proposal for the 2nd year in a row, and we have a record number of 5 NABJ academic members on the panel. The name of the session is Effectively Using Mobile Device Tools in Visual Journalism Reporting. So we have been able to do that. I've been writing proposals. Like I said, this is the 2nd year in a row. This is my 2nd year as an academic representative. So really, I have done tremendously amount of things in that 2 years. I also saved the position by only 2 votes. Everybody keep forgetting that. Also, you have to really look at the learning modules within the NABJ educators Facebook link. Those models are clear and concise, and they really set up the best practices for research and teaching for our members.
Professor Henderson, did you want to take
I was just going to say in response to that, I think it's really unfortunate that we don't give our academic members credit for also saving the position of academic rep. I know it only passed by 2 votes, but obviously you can't cast both of them. We need to give our academic members credit for doing this position right and giving us the time to show and prove how great this organization can be for academics and journalists. I hope to be the person to help us move into that next phase of leadership. But obviously what we have been doing has not been working. So let's move forward and find some other solutions.
Professor Motley, do you want to take that on? How can we support members who are both or who are journalists and academics?
Look, I think this position can be expanded. I don't think we need to box this position in. It can be whatever it is the academic representative makes it. And so what I want to do, I want to make it attractive to not just the academic members, but to the professional members, because, you know, as you know, we have a stream of professionals that are making this transition. And so we are an integral part of NABJ, all right? I'm a lifelong member of NABJ. I'm not going anywhere, whether I'm a professional, whether I'm academic. So we need to put this position to a positive use. And like I said, to be proactive and to look out for our members. And that's what's going to bring the value to this position. And then we won't have to be worried about whether we're going to have this position voted out or not. All right, that should not even be on the table. And truth be told, that's the reason why I got into this race, because of the threat of this position just being eliminated. I did not want to see it eliminated. So I'm in the race, and I want to make sure that this position is with the organization here on out. But we got to be proactive. We can't be passive and sit back and just say, hey, it is what it is. All right. We have to be advocates. And that's in our DNA. That's in our blood as journalists anyway.
Professor Henderson, you didn't get to answer the question. How do you plan to support our members who are both academics and journalists?
And I'll be quick in the interest of fairness. I do think that we need to listen to our members. That is one of the things that a lot of criticism of NABJ as an entire organization is being had, is that we don't necessarily listen to our members. And so it can't just be the executive board making decisions in their own interest. We also have to make sure that we're talking to the folks who are currently academic members, who want to be academic or professional members, figure out what their needs are, and then cater to those needs. It's great that we're having a panel this year on creating visuals with your mobile phone. Visual Task Force under my leadership has been doing that for the last 4 years. And I feel like we as academic members not only need to talk about the tools and tips, but also the techniques of what it means to be an academic professional. How do you get in those avenues and venues where you can be the most effective, whether it's your training, whether it's your outreach, whether it's your scholarship. That is the type of way that we should be going as an organization with this position as academic representative.
And can I add something?
Yes.
Professor Henderson is exactly right. We got to listen and we got to talk to our academic members. I've been on the phone with the academic members, for example, after the email came out about our virtual convention. I wanted to find out from the academic members what they felt about the $190 registration fee. And you know what they told me? They said it's fine, all right? Because they know they're going to get some value out of this virtual convention. And the reason why they say it's fine is because they don't want a cheaper rate. They want to be right there with the professionals. They want to be up to par with the professionals, because if they lower the rate for academic members, how does that make us look? All right. They want to be treated like NABJ members, and that comes with a price. That comes with a price tag. And in fact, one of the academic members told me that, you know, she didn't have a problem with the $190 fee. In fact, she's going to buy a registration for students. All right. So, but I needed that feedback. I needed to hear that in order to come back to the organization, in order to come back to this webinar and to be able to say that, you know, academic members are fine, at least the ones I've talked to, with the $120 registration fee.
Thank you very much. I have a question that's specifically for Dr. Brown. How will you raise funds to build an infrastructure for a tenure-eligible peer-reviewed research that meets all the required metrics, including a number of accepted articles, roster of subject matter experts, and the proper submission portal and staffing? Do we really need to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, I'm not advocating for us to do a journal. That's the first thing. I'm simply only asking that we should have a space in the NAB journal to do a peer review article. And that can be taken on by, that can be a qualitative or quantitative article featuring media by an individual professor. So I'm not advocating for us to get any funds. I'm advocating for the academic person or persons to have the opportunity to have peer review articles presented in our magazine, the NABJ journal.
Professor Henderson, do you want to?
I'm just curious. What have been the challenges in getting that done for our magazine? I'm just curious for any more information on why haven't we been able to do that?
Well, can I mention it? Can I say something? Well, yeah. It's something I came up with, and as a proposal in terms of our platform, what would we be interested in doing? And that's when I came up with it. It's not something that we, you know, basically forgotten. It's just nobody has brought it to the attention. I'm bringing it to the attention that so when I'm the academic rep for next year, I can push it through.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one final question and then we're going to wrap up. And my question is, what 3 things would you like to see done in order to support and raise up the academic members? And we'll start with Dr. Brown.
Okay, I'm kind of confused. You said 3 things you want.
3 proposals that you would put in place to help and strengthen the academic members in this organization.
Okay, first thing was what I just mentioned. I would like to have at least one peer review article published in the NAB journal at least once a year by different or 2 or 3 academic members. So I think that's a pretty easy thing to do. Also, I would like to see us doing more, workshops. We have a workshop. We have a virtual workshop in which I proposed and wrote. So we have 5 academic members who also were one-time professionals that's on the panel. So that's important. We need to be involved in the workshops. Also, we need to be involved in every aspect of educational, in educational initiatives. That means visual task force and all the other task force. You can't have all these sideline type organizations on the side. Everything should come through the academic rep. Now, they shouldn't have knowledge about it. I'm not saying that they have to govern everything, but there should always, anything that's educational that's involved in NABJ should be presented to the academic rep. That's how you develop network, camaraderie, and that's how you learn different things within the organization.
Professor Henderson, 3 things that you would implement as academic rep.
Yes, ma'am. 3 things I would implement as academic rep. Establish voting power for our academic members, raise money for our programming at NABJ, including the revitalization of our student projects program And 3, implement some type of job market preparedness for our students across the nation who are either at HBCUs or PWIs. I think that it is important to have an academic member voice represented in the national convention, especially when they deal with proposals that deal with our direct involvement, as Dr. Brown talked about earlier. I think academic reps, even on a local level, are marginalized as just PR representatives, and their opinion doesn't really matter. It does matter, and we need to figure out how we can locally help and support our academic representatives to do what they need to do. Raise money for our programming at NABJ. I go so far as to say I will find a sponsor to partner with for more academic programming for our national convention. I've been talking to a lot of our members, and they have specific asks that they are interested in presenting their research, finding opportunities. We might not be an established, peer journal organization, and that's okay, but we can hook our members up with people and resources that they need to do that type of work. And then the third thing is to allow our students to be competitive in this era of COVID-19. I see it all the time in visual journalism. We should have some type of avenue as academic members to help prepare our students beyond the classroom. Everybody can't go to Ohio University or Miami University or University of Missouri. We have to be able that allow our students to be prepared no matter which institution they go to compete at their highest level.
Thank you very much. Professor Motley, 3 things you would implement as academic rep.
First, we need a strong recruitment program. We need the members, we need the body, so we can have a very strong voting bloc. Secondly, we need a program that reconnects academics with the newsroom, all right, with the industry. That's very important. It's important to me. Not everybody has a part-time job in journalism. And so if our academics are just reading from books, that's not good enough to prepare our students for the workplace. So we need to establish some sort of program similar to the one that me and Dr. Brown participated in several years ago, the Back to the Newsroom program, which was just very enlightening, very expensive to put us through that program, if you can agree, Dr. Brown. But it was just very enlightening for me, and I was really energized and recharged when I got back to my classroom. And lastly, we have to look out for our members and be that bank for jobs and opportunity in this academic industry. I mean, a lot of us don't want to be in the classroom. We want to be administrators. And how do you get there? And once you get there, then what happens? So I think we need to be advocates for our members on the job front, whether you're a professor or whether you're president of the university. I think that's very important because I want to grow in my position. I want to grow, and I need someone to guide me. And so a lot of times we may even need mentors. All right. I'm not too grown enough to have a mentor. So perhaps that's the route to go, to connect our academic members with members that are in positions that they want to get to.
Thank you very much for those responses. We're going to wrap up now, and we're going to give everyone a 3-minute closing statement. And we're going to start with Dr. Brown.
Okay. In 1985, there was a sister from Detroit that had a song. Her name was Aretha Franklin. It was a secular song. It was called Who's Zooming Who? I want to lift the cloud of this constitutional smokescreen. First of all, the academic rep serves educators through the collaborative effort by sharing best practices in journalism, education, and research. Sure, yes, we also work with students. There's a relationship between educators and students. My research team did a fantastic thing. I looked at all the particular platforms. My research team took an application called Tag Crowd, and it visualized words, the frequency in the text. Here are the results of, I'm not going to name the names of the candidates, but the candidate 1, student 6, organization and opportunity 4, candidate 2, Black 6, chapter and student, candidate B, That's the brave candidate. That's me. I mentioned educators, academic, and amendment. Also, it's one thing that kept coming up that was mentioned. I mentioned research, teaching, service, and representative. There's a constitutional problem. There's a constitutional problem within NABJ. We keep trying to make professionals members into academic members, and they are professional people. They're not academic. They have a job on the side as academic people. But if you're making $90,000 for the Washington Post and you're working at Howard for $2,000, you are a professional member, irrespective if you change your title within NABJ. There is a constitutional problem and it must be amended. We also have an amendment problem within basically the Constitution. We cannot vote for things that happens within our particular area. We had to ask the professional members to vote for us to keep our seat last year. Academic members could not vote. There's a problem. We have a constitutional problem. We have a house divided, and it will not stand. Thank you.
Professor Henderson, we'll hear from you next. 3 minutes.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to these candidates. It's the last time that we'll meet publicly together before the election. I'm ready to do the work, NABJ. I am ready to do the work. I've heard your inquiries, your requests, the things that you want to see this organization and this position become, and I'm ready to do that. I said this as a student many, many years ago in 2008 at the student projects that I participated in Tampa. And I think it still applies today. We can no longer afford to answer digital problems with analog solutions. You need somebody who is able to move our organization forward to make sure that we have a strong academic presence within this organization. And I feel like I'm the right person to do that. At the end of the day, no matter the word count, no matter the things that have been done in the past, I'm looking to move forward and continue to move our members forward. Vote for me. Make sure to get registered before the deadline. And please vote for me if you vote for progress and if you believe that NABJ works, because this worked for me. Now I'm trying to work for the organization.
Thank you very much, Professor Henderson. Professor Motley, we'll hear from you now.
All right, and I know I'm not going to use up all of my 3 minutes because I'm more of a doer than a talker. I think this academic representative position needs to be expanded. The person in this position needs to think outside of the box. The person in this position needs to be proactive for its members. Yes, there may be some constitutional issues that we're dealing with, and I'm sure that will be addressed at a later time. But right now, we need a voice for our academic members. First, we need to get the members in NABJ, which is what I intend to do. Look, I'm excited as an academic here. As you can see, I love where I am. I love what I do. And NABJ, and I'm about to get misty-eyed right here. My students know I get really emotional when I talk about NABJ and them, because NABJ has brought so much to this classroom. I don't have a whole lot here at Florida Memorial University in terms of equipment and resources and that type of thing. And I've had to call Professor Henderson to help me out on the type of camera equipment to get. But I don't have a whole lot. But guess what? NABJ gives me a whole lot. It expands my classroom. It expands the experience to my students. And I think that we need to get our academic members amped up, excited about that this can be of value to what you do as an academic. So I am greatly indebted to NABJ for helping me. I mean, words can't express. It can't express. So now it's time for me to give back. And yes, I gave back last year when me and my team helped put together that convention. That was something else. But now I want to give back to my academic members. All right, I'm a worker, I'm a fighter, and I don't like the word no. All right, so let's make it happen. And thank you for joining us tonight and hearing what we had to say. I'm glad we had this discussion with all three of the candidates here, including myself.
Well, thank you all for your responses and your participation tonight. I just have one correction to make. We have many full-time professors who have been grandfathered in as professional members. And keep in mind that everybody who is an academic isn't always a tenure-track academic. We have people teaching in all kinds of capacities. And I think that's what makes our organization rich. It's the diversity of the people who bring their academic and professional experiences together to make this a really strong organization. This is a new position, relatively new position. It hasn't been around all that long. We have an opportunity to make it what we want it to be. And I think that everyone should vote. By July 6th, you must have your membership in place in order to be eligible to vote. So if you want to vote as an academic member, you have to be registered as an academic member. So if you don't have an academic membership, you can change it now. But you need to have it in place by July 6th in order to vote for this position. We'll be having the electronic voting from July 13th to August 7th. And on August 7th, we will announce the winners. Good luck, everybody. I look forward to seeing you virtually at the NABJ convention, and good night, everyone. And thank you all the attendees for attending, and thank you for your questions, and good night, everyone.